In this tutorial, we'll be covering lens calibration. If you haven't collected your lens calibration trial yet, watch this entire video as there is important information about how to collect the lens calibration trial within this video. The first step is to click View Lens Calibration. When you click this, you'll see the lens calibration dialog. Here we're going to click Load Videos, and we're going to select the folder where the lens calibration videos are located. Note that these videos are already formatted according to the formatting data specifications. In this collection, one thing you'll notice is that the checkerboard we are using is being positioned at many different angles and is covering the entire field of view of the camera. Now this is important to calculate accurate lens calibration parameters. So when you're performing your trial, be sure to cover the entire lens and to angle the checkerboard at a few different angles. Another thing that's important is that when you print the checkerboard, if you're using our checkerboard, you can ignore this, but there is a white border around the checkerboard. This makes it easier to detect and you'll achieve better results. The second parameter is the checkerboards per second. Now here we only want to look at one checkerboard per second. The reason we've selected this parameter as 1 is because we've collected at 30 frames per second for approximately 90 seconds. So the number of images here is significant, and we only want to capture one checkerboard per second to reduce the calibration time. So with the videos loaded and the checkerboards per second defined, now we're going to define the parameters for the actual checkerboard. So the first two parameters, the square height and the square width, are the physical dimensions of this checkerboard in real-world units, in millimeters. So when I printed the checkerboard, I designed the checkerboard to have 25 millimeter high squares and 25 millimeter wide squares. So that's this height here and this height here. So I input those two parameters here. The second two parameters are the number of squares high and the number of squares wide. These refer to the inner dimensions of the checkerboard. So for number of squares high, the way we calculate it is by counting the number of squares, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and subtracting 1, giving a value of 6. For the number of squares wide, we perform the same process, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and subtract 1, giving a value of 8. Now that everything is inputted correctly, we're going to click Calibrate Lenses. Depending on how long you collected the calibration trial, this process can take quite a while. So for our calibration trial, we are currently finished 1%, so we will resume this video when the calibration trial is complete. Now that the calibration is complete, if we scroll through the images, what you'll notice is that the checkerboard is identified in certain frames. It's not identified in every frame because our number of checkerboards per second is 1, so we're only looking for one checkerboard per second. So in this, approximately every 30 frames. So here we have the checkerboard identified in views 3 and 5. And if we double click on any individual view, you'll notice that all the lines in the view are straight and the edges of the view are slightly distorted, only because we didn't cover that area of the lens during the calibration. If you have significant distortion on your lenses, you'll notice that a greater area on the edges is affected. However, you should still see straight lines within your images. This concludes the lens calibration tutorial, and we look forward to hearing from you in other tutorials.